our oil pan came in. Well, we're still waiting to figure out what we want to do here with our head gaskets. And to be a little bit clear, our problem there with the head gaskets is that you can mill meat off the cylinder heads all day, and you're just raising your compression a little bit, right? Like you can take 20 thousandths or whatever off the cylinder head and it can still go on just fine. But when the block has been milled, you run the risk of the piston coming out of the cylinder a little bit. And if the piston comes out of the cylinder a little bit, this is different than milling meat off the head. This can bring about a situation where the piston is kissing the head. And so we need to make sure that we have the proper quench or squish. We just need to have a piston bridge and a gauge, and we need to measure how much out of hole, if any, the piston is coming. And we need to take that into account with the thickness of the head gasket we're going to use and make sure that we're going to have at least 30 thousandths of clearance. And I have a tool coming for that, but I don't have it in my possession at this time. So we'll have that tomorrow. But for today, we have the oil pan, the C6 oil pan to set up on our Trailblazer SS turbo build. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to set that up. First thing we need to do is we need to get the motor upside down. We also have different motor mounts to use with this build. Because we're hoping to make like 600 or 700 horse out of this. We got these incredible poly mounts that are fabricated. These are a much nicer mount. These will keep the motor in its place and keep things from rocking around. And that'll help keep our headers and exhaust pipes from wanting to break their shit or anything like that. So the oil pan that we're going to use on this is off a C6 Corvette. This is a rear sump oil pan, which is really nice because the Trailblazer SS, uses a front sump, and we got nothing good to say about a front sump oil pan. We just don't. Like, inertia is always pulling things to the back, and I don't know why anybody would make anything front sump. So this is the C6 pickup tube. You have to have a pickup tube matched to the oil pan you're running, of course. Get the bolt. Or 2 windage tray nuts. The old pickup was held down by 2 nuts. This one's only 1. All right, so we put a little bit of gasket sealer. I like to use the right stuff in between where the covers meet the block. On all 4. Then we'll lay our gasket down. And then we'll put our pan down. This pan I've already modified for the turbo oil drain. I put it in the same place where it was at on the Trailblazer SS. While it was not a turbo build, the motor that came out of the Trailblazer SS already had a turbo drain on it. The Trailblazer SS, when we took it apart, it was just a naturally aspirated 6-liter with a hot cam, but the oil pan already had a turbo oil drain on it. So there's a history behind this Trailblazer SS that we've completely missed. or that motor or oil pan that was in it came out of another Trailblazer. I don't know what's going on. We don't see any evidence of intercooler or anything that's been mounted on this Trailblazer SS, so I have no idea why that was. But we chose to put our turbo drain in like pretty much the exact same place where that one was, just behind the second bolt on the passenger side of the block, with enough room, enough spacing that our AC adapter bracket will still fit without interfering. This oil pan came with all of its own hardware, which is nice. We'll start by torquing the bolts that go into the block to 18 pound feet. Once all the pan to block bolts have been tightened to 18, we can tighten the two front bolts to the pan or to the front cover. And then we can start getting these guys in. I'll take these front cover bolts back loose once I've done it and retorque them, just to make sure that nothing is stressed and everything's going back right. And then we can torque the rest of the bolts around here, around the front cover to 18. And the pan and the front cover are set. The rear cover was already on and torqued when the motor came to us. But I really like being accurate in my stuff, so I'm going to crack all these bolts loose. I'm not going to take them really loose, but I'm just going to crack them loose. And the rear cover bolts get tightened to 106 inch-pounds. And then we can tighten the rear cover bolts down to back to 18. I cannot tighten those back to 18 really until I get this off the stand. I can just tighten these two on the back one through. And the rest of the rear cover bolts I'll tighten when I have the engine pulled forward off the stand before it goes in the car. But for now, that's our C6 oil pan setup on the turbo build on the motor for the Trailblazer SS. The Trailblazer SS does not have an oil level sensor in it, so we'll find a plug for that. And that's it. Remember, it's very important when you're setting up your tin on one of these LS style engines that the oil pan gets bolted to the block and torqued up to the block first, and then the bolts go in the end caps to pull the front and rear covers down to the pan, and then those get tightened into the block. This way, everything is square and true, and there are no air gaps anywhere. They're going to promote oil leaks. I've seen a lot of oil leaks at what looks like a rear main seal, but it's because the rear cover was torqued down, centered to the rear crankshaft, and it left the rear cover up a little bit from the block, and it created a little gap between the back of the oil pan and the bottom of the rear cover. So the seals that they're using on these engines have a little bit of flexibility to give for a slight out of up or down condition to let the pan be centered more on what the oil pan gasket needs to be. And so that's how we should be putting those together. All right. We'll get back to it when we have our piston bridge. For now, we're taking a break.